What was the focus of Shootaround today?
Well, the main thing is, get ready for a team that's won 6 in a row. They're playing really well. You got the All-Star Game MVP playing at a very high level, kind of putting him on his back. One of the top fourth quarter scorers in the league. So, we concentrated on a lot of that. And then again, some of the things we made some mistakes on. We had probably 3 or 4 possessions where guys didn't carry out their assignment offensively in a one-possession game, and we can't have that. Everybody's got a job to do on every possession on offense and defense, and you can't have brain locks in those situations. So just some of those things, just cleaning up some stuff offensively and getting ready for Cleveland.
Have you spoken to DeMar, focusing at all about end-of-game execution, any things that you want to see from him?
We went through that, also looking at some of the options, in the game situations. Spacing is huge. And some things that Chicago did to him in that special game situation, late game situation. We went through that, how we want to execute if a team does that to us. Those things. And again, him in the game is a learning experience. You don't learn that in 1 or 2 seasons. So we're trying to get him, grow him into that situation. We got to develop some other options at the end of the game when teams, are kind of keying on him, double teaming him, trying to get the ball out of his hands. Who else, can we go to in those situations? Is some things we worked on.
Looking down at the other end of the court, are you surprised at the struggles that Cleveland's had this year, looking at the makeup of that team?
No, not really, because it's a new coach, new system, new attitude, new culture. A lot of things are different than last year, and all those things takes time. Everybody wants to put pieces together and play fantasy basketball, and that doesn't happen in the NBA. You got personalities, you got issues, you got egos, you got a lot of things you got to work through. So those things happen. And so, but I'm not surprised of how well they're playing right now either, because they are a very talented team from top to bottom.
Looking at the trade yesterday, how does Nando fit in? What does he bring to the table?
He brings another ball handler. We got G and Kyle as our point guards, and in this last stretch of the season, we're going to need all the ball handlers we can get. If they try to take the ball out of Kyle's hands, they try to take the ball out of Grievous' hands, late in the games, you give us another ball handler. And or if something, knock on wood, foul trouble happens, something happens, you have another, veteran point guard. And nothing, against Julian and Dwight, but, DeColo is a little bit more experienced and more seasoned going down the stretch run.
I was sort of saying yesterday that everybody in the league tries to act, tough, like the trade deadline doesn't matter, but the reality is y'all are human. Mm-hmm. Is there sort of a relief now that it's passed?
Well, I'm sure there is. I mean, it's something we don't talk a lot about because it's part of basketball, the business of basketball. I'm sure there is, and talking to Kyle this morning, we just talked about, how we want to approach it going, rest of the season. And he has been a pro about it. His name has been bandied around more than anyone's. And I thought Kyle handled it professionally. He had an open dialogue with Masai and myself as far as communication was concerned. Masai was in constant communication with his agent. So all those things help, knowing what's going on. There's no mysteries. Nobody's reading, hoops hype or whatever, trying to figure out what's going on. They already know. So that kind of relieves the pressure a little bit more.
Have you said a lot of the next 30-odd games predominantly will be at home? Have you set a mark for the number of wins that you expect the team?
No, I'm concerned about possessions. More it's just the next possession, and we want to win games. No question. I'm not being facetious, but we want to make sure we take possession by possession, quarter by quarter, and do our jobs in each one. And number of wins. If we do those things, the wins will take care of themselves.
You talk a lot about patience with young players. It's not going to happen overnight. Is the Anthony Bennett thing kind of like an example of that?
I'm sure. I'm not in their locker room, so I don't know. I know he's a talented young man. He's a guy that can shoot the ball. I think, just watching him as a season, I think he's gotten in better condition, ready for the speed of the NBA game. It's a big difference. I mean, and having the pressure of being the number 1 pick, but he's shooting the ball at a high rate. I know we got to make sure we rotate quickly to him and make him make another decision. So, but I don't know about as far as patience and that type of thing from their organization.
Getting back to the end of game stuff, when Rudy was here as well and the DeMar play, there's not a lot of movement going on. So is getting movement sort of something that we try to help out?
Well, we have that, and there is movement, and in the ISO situation, there's not a lot of movement. I was watching the game last night, Houston. I was watching also with Golden State. There's not a lot of movement. The theme is you want to get the ball in your best player's hands. And you can have – we should have had some movement in what happened the other night. I don't want to get into specifics, but you have movement to get into it, and depending on how many seconds are left on the clock, you're not going to have a lot of movement. You got to make a play. And but what happened the other night, there was 10 seconds ago. There should have been movement, and that's what we covered today.
Generally speaking, and this is, like you said, across the league, why does stuff tend to stagnate and be more not just ISO-driven, but, still at the end of games versus at other points?
That's one reason why you have, your all-star player, your best player, you want to get into his hands and make a play. At that point, DeMar had 32 points. Again, just because you get the ball, and that's something, we're developing with DeMar, doesn't mean he necessarily has to score. He can make a play, make a pass. So that's the understanding of that situation. And going through it, you begin to recognize and see your options. And it's very easy for us to stand here and say, hey, he should have done this, he should have done that. When you've got, 4 seconds going on the clock, you got the ball, 18,000 people watching plus television, and you got to make a play or, make a read. That's something you don't learn overnight, and that's something DeMar is developing into. But, I've got to help him as a coach to make it easier for him as much as I can.